Having sold Brexit as something marvellous, which was going to be brilliant for Britain, Boris Johnson was elected with an oven-ready deal, apparently, which was going to make Britain global again. The only thing that this deal has done is made Britain a global laughingstock for even falling for the lies of such a charlatan. The Brexit that we are trying to live with continues to cause more damage and chaos by the day. The latest addition to the chaos is these Brexit checks, which have been delayed so many times, are now finally coming in, but they've been thrust upon industry with very short notice. These checks are going to ensure food shortages, and also we're going to lose a variety of choice on our shelves. And it's going to push up food inflation. It's going to particularly damage small and medium-sized businesses, delis, sandwich shops, those kind of things, places that enjoy selling nice food to the British public. No, we're going back to white bread and spam. Last week on LBC, James O'Brien spoke to a food importer who is preparing for these new checks. Do have a listen, but what you have to remember is these costs will be pushed on to the consumer. That's us. And also for us farmers, we are looking at increased costs because many of our inputs come from Europe as well, and they will also be subject to these costs. So also it means British food will also be going up in price because of these Brexit checks.
I'm all right, but I'm not a food importer, so I would be, wouldn't I?
Quite. Yes, well, we are in the food import business. We import chilled foods, predominantly for the convenience retail market sector. And these latest charges that have just been announced will cost us in the region of another £100,000 per year.
Whoa.
And that's just based on the figures provided on behalf of Dover and Folkestone, because those are the two government-owned ports of entry. Private ports of entry, we still don't know what they will charge. But fortunately, for our business, 90-odd% of our product comes through Dover and Folkestone. Now, that extra $100,000 a year, that's on top of the circa $100,000 a year that we are already paying, thanks to Brexit, for customs declarations, which we have now been doing for 3 or 4 years. And, of course, that is all on top of the sustained 25% devaluation of pound sterling against the euro and other major currencies. That is the result of our decision to leave the EU. So products are already 25% more expensive at the factory gate. And thanks to the bureaucracy, we have increased order lead times. Our order lead times have increased from 7 days generally up to as much as 28 days on some products from Italy, plus the bureaucracy of dealing with all these declarations and so on and so forth, and the cost for doing that. This week I was listening to a webinar with DEFRA about these charges.
Yes. So they're getting their ducks in a row quite late, if you pardon the pun, Daniel.
I mean, they've only announced these charges within 4 weeks of them coming into action.
Just madness. I don't
know how we're supposed to make any plans in advance.
You don't need to be in business to realise how objectively appalling that is. And part of the reason, this is me thinking out loud, is that they are terrified of announcing bad Brexit news. They're terrified of actually announcing the damage that this is doing to the country, because they're all still swanning around pretending that it was a great idea.
Absolutely. And you might recall that this actual thing that's happening now has been kicked into the long grass several times already by the government. And one time when they did it, when Truss was in charge, Jacob Rees-Mogg, he said, we're delaying this because it will add cost to business and we don't want to fuel inflation during the cost of living crisis.
He said it would be an act of national self-harm.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
And here we are. And that's the
anyway.
bit. Well, you're doing my job for me in a way, because I mean, you've just got to deal with this, and in a way, touch wood, you'll get through it. And in a way, the fact that you're a good business person will mean that you will get. Well, you must be, if you're talking about these sort of numbers already. You're obviously very good at what you do, and that will equip you, hopefully, with what you need to stay afloat and continue being successful and profitable. But they have hobbled you, or nobbled you, or whatever the right word is. They have tied.
They absolutely have. They absolutely have. They have cost us millions.
Yeah.
And caused us so much additional work, which brings with it stress and requirements for people and all this sorts of stuff. I mean, frankly, they have sucked the life out of the job by imposing all this.
Yeah. And we don't know why. Well, we know why. They had no idea what they were doing back in 2016. They had no idea what it would actually...
Right.
Did you know, as soon as that result dropped, did you know what was on the horizon, or have you even been shocked by the scale of it?
I had a very good idea of what it would mean.
Yeah.
I also had quite a strong inkling that the country would take that choice, unfortunately.
Same.
But here we are.
Even
though I am well versed in it because it affects me directly and my business directly, I still have been unpleasantly surprised by some of the things that have happened and some of the decisions that have been taken. It is, well, it's disastrous. Chris Patten, do you remember him, former chairman of the Conservative Party, was talking to Andrew Marr on this station a couple of weeks ago.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, credible individual, I would say.
Same.
He suggests that Brexit has caused a 5% contraction of our economy so far.
Yeah.
5%.
And this
now,
bit hasn't
seismic.
even kicked in. It is seismic, you're right.
I would love somebody to actually point out to me a single benefit, because I'm waiting to discover something and hopefully be able to have a slightly better opinion of things. But I'm still waiting for someone to do that.
Well, and someone can claim X, Y, or Z, or I could show you a Daily Express front page, but it's not going to undo the lived reality of what you're experiencing, that the absolute knowledge that you had a business operating successfully and the UK government came along and did something that adds millions to your costs.
And not only have we faced problems with staffing since Brexit happened, there's now a new Brexit change which has come in. The government has forced up the threshold, the salary threshold, for the skilled worker threshold from 27,000 a year to 38,700, which means it's unaffordable now for our restaurants to bring over staff from European countries. And this means that we are definitely going back to eating sliced white bread and spam. And Anthony Horowitz is so right to say this.
I don't know if I'm allowed to mention the B word on your programme, but Brexit too has had a knock-on
you weren't
effect.
keen on Brexit, were you?
I still remain convinced that it is one of the sort of disasters of my life, sadly, and wish that it hadn't happened.
But back to the question I asked.
The question you asked was,
could you bear to vote Conservative at the next general election?
I will not vote Conservative in the next election, largely because Richmond-on-Thames is very much, I think, a Lib Dem stronghold, and so it would be a wasted vote anyway. I'm more inclined, I think, to spoil my ballot paper, which I think a lot of people may do this time round, to say that the entire political system needs readdressing, and that our attitude to it and the values that we are searching for in both our politicians and in this country. So I think that is what I will do in the next election, is spoil my paper.
I've hunted high and low for a Brexit benefit, and I cannot find one. There are Brexit benefits for Ireland, but there are none for Britain. It's all considerable downsides. It is extraordinary that people are not really jumping up and down about what Brexit continues to do to Britain. And it will continue to hurt Britain until we actually wake up and realise that we've got to undo it and admit that we got it wrong. And the sooner we do that, the better.